this video, we will examine Java's most fundamental element, that is data types and variables. As with all modern programming languages, Java supports several types of data. You may use these types to declare variables and to create arrays. As you will see, Java's approach to these items is clean, efficient, and cohesive. Now, what actually is a data type? So data types are a particular kind of data with which we want to perform any operation or we want to store that data. In Java, there are two types of data types. First is the primitive one and second is the non-primitive. The first one, that is the primitive one, is also known as fundamental data types. These data types are not composed of any other data type. They are independent of each other, such as int, char, float, double, and many more. We will discuss them all. Then comes non-primitive type. Non-primitive type are basically derived from the primitive ones. For example, array, array list, linked list, and many more. In this video, our main focus is to understand the primitive data types. Non-primitive data types will be covered later on. Java defines 8 primitive types of data: byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, and boolean. Starting 4, that is byte, short, int, and long, are used for storing integer values. Float and double are used to represent numbers with fractional precision. Char is used to store character, and boolean is a special data type which contains only two values, that is either true or false. Now here is the range of data types which we have discussed, the primitive data types. So you can see that the size of the boolean is 1 bit. Don't go to the default value right now, because we will discuss default value when we make the programs of data types. Then we will discuss what is the default value. Basically, if you don't give or initialize any value to the data type or to the variable of that data type, then the variable stores a default value. So in this case, the default value will be false, and the range is 0 and 1, that is true and false. Next comes char. Char stores 2 bytes. The default value is shown here, and the range is 0 to 65535. Then comes byte. Byte stores 1 byte. Default size of byte is 1 byte. Default value is 0 and the range is -128 to 127. The ranges are very important, as when we make the program we'll come to know that if you don't have any knowledge about the range of that data type, the output may be logically wrong. So we must have the knowledge of ranges. Next comes short. Short is of 2 bytes and the range is shown here. Then integer, long, float, and double. The ranges of long, float, and double are very large, so one must remember the ranges till int if you are unable to remember the ranges of long, float, or double. There are some basic terminologies which must be understood before making our programs. So the first one is white space. Java is a free form language. This means that you don't need to follow any special indentation rules. In Java, white space is a space, tab, or new line. So there is no need for giving indentation. Indentation must be given for the sake of programmer or anybody else to understand the program easily. Then comes identifiers. Identifiers are used to name things such as classes, variables, and methods, that is functions. An identifier may be any descriptor sequence of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, or underscore and $sign characters. The $sign character is not intended for general use. They must not begin with a number, lest they be confused with a numeric literal. Again, Java is a case sensitive, so make sure to use accordingly. The third one is literals. A constant value in Java is created by using a literal representation of it. We'll do all these things when we'll make the program. I'll tell you all these things. Then come comments. There are 3 types of comments which will be defined in Java. There are basically 3 types of comments defined by Java. When we'll make the program, I'll show you what are the types in which you can give the comments in Java. Then comes separators. In Java, there are a few characters that are used as separators. The most commonly separator used in Java is the semicolon. Then there are parentheses, braces, brackets, comma, colons, and so on. So these all are the separators which are for separating the statements. Then keywords. There are 50 keywords currently defined in Java language. Keywords are the special words, or we can say that these are the words which are reserved in the compiler memory for giving a special meaning to them. For example, if we want to make an integer variable, we define that variable as int a. Here the int is a keyword which is already defined in the Java language, which means that a is of integer type. So we'll discuss all these things practically in a few minutes. Now we will make the programs for data types, and I'll show you all the things related to that. If you have seen our previous videos, then you might be knowing that we have made all our programs in Notepad. So we'll be making that in Notepad again. So if you remember that we have made a folder named Java in C drive, and here we'll be making our first program for data type. So I named the file as dtype1.java and press enter. And as soon as you press enter, you'll have to press yes. You'll see the notepad file over here. Now you'll have to make a program. So before making the program, so our program is entirely written in a class. So we make a class and name it as dtype1, and this is the body of class. Then we make our main method. So the main method is like this. We have discussed this already. Suppose we make a byte variable a and store a value 127 in it. As you might be remembering, the range which we have shown for byte is -128 to 127. So this is the maximum value which a byte can store, and now we print that value to the screen. What do you expect? What will be the output? The output will be 127. That's no doubt. Now to run our program, we have to first compile it with the name of the file, that is dtype1.java, and press enter. As you can see that there are no errors. We will run our program, and we have run our program, and you can see now. So here you can see that we have printed 127 on the output screen. Now what we will do, we will initialize the value to 128. Now what do you think, what will be the output? Here will be an error. See the error: incompatible types, possible loosey conversion from integer to byte. What this line means? This line means that the compiler is treating this byte value as an integer value. So you are converting a byte value to an integer value without using casting. What is casting we'll discuss later on, but that's a concept in programming language. So this is an error. Okay, now if we make this byte short and then print this and then compile the program, we will see that it has been compiled successfully and the output is 128. Okay, now if the range has been exceeded of short also, that is 32768, the range of short, you might be remembering that the range of short is -32768 to 32767. So here you can see that, and then when I will save this, you can see when I compile the program, there's again an error: incompatible types, possible loosey conversion from int to short. So you have to understand the range concept and you have to take it very seriously, because I've seen many programmers who are thinking that who will learn these ranges and all that, but I can say for sure that the ranges are very important for a developer. as you are at the beginner stage or learning path, these things might not be useful for you, but when you will be in development state or developer, when you will become a developer, or you will be having 1+2+ experience, 1+2+ year experience, then you will come to know that the ranges are very important for any program. Okay, so now similarly we can do for integer and all the programs. Here I'm not showing all the programs for all the data types because it will be too long. So I hope that you will do the practice, and you just have to do this one thing, that instead of short you'll have to type integer, and you have to check that whether it works or not. Okay, so I'm skipping the integer. Now we come to long. Now we will do this as long. Okay, so what do you expect? What will be the output at this point? All of you might be expecting that it will be 327. It will be, yes, it will be 327. Okay, so here the long, with long you can print, you can have as much range as this. So if I type this and save it and then compile this program, there is an error that integer number is too large. Remember what I've said a couple of minutes ago, that the compiler treats these numbers as integer, and the range of integer is 32767. So when you will go above 32767, you have to put an L here. This means that this number is now not an integer, this is a long. Okay, so now when you will compile your program, sorry, I have not saved it, save it and then compile your program, you'll see that the error has been rectified and your output is correct. Now we will come to float. Okay, so float A is equals to 327.565. save it and then compile it. You'll get again an error, incompatible types, possible lose the conversion from double to float. So you might be wondering why there is an error, as all the things are correct. So you have to understand one point also, that the compiler treats the float value or the decimal value by default as a double. So you just have to put here F. This means that this is a float value and not a double value. So when you compile the program, you'll not get an error and your output will be printed. Okay. So instead of float, if you write double, and this will be correct, the output will be as expected. What you are expecting, the output will be same. We compile it and we run it. Okay. Now instead of double, we take a char. So character values are always enclosed in single quotes, and the string values are always enclosed in double quotes. So I suppose that I write P over here, then compile the program and run the program. We get the output as print. So here's nothing to understand basically. What you see is what you get here. Okay, now we take boolean. A is equal to, now boolean is either true or false, so I write true here, and now compile the program and then run it. We get true over here. You can see that. Now after that, what if I just write this much only? What output do you expect? You might be thinking that the default values which I have discussed over here, that is a boolean's default value is false, so here the false will get printed. But my friends, here will be an error. Here's an error. See, what is the error? Variable A might not have been initialized. In Java, if you have declared a variable, suppose if you have declared a variable and you have printed it, so it will give an error that variable A might not have been initialized. Default value concept, when the default value will come, I'll tell you in the next video. In this video we're not going to that concept because we have first to learn the object-oriented principles, and then we will move on to that topic. So here's an error. If you guys have time or are eager to know why this error occurs or how to rectify the error and how to print the default value, you can just go to any website and search for that. Okay, now I declare a variable char a equals to this, and another character b is equal to, suppose, capital A, and now I print a plus b over here. Expect the output. What will be the output? The output is 162. Most of you have understood why this output has come, because the compiler takes the ASCII value of this small a and the ASCII value of this capital A and adds both of them and print it over here. That is 162. So these are some of the programs which you might like to see, and you can also practice, or you can make your just have to practice about data types, because data types are really an important part of any programming language. Now we have discussed the basic terminologies, we have made the programs for data types. Now we come to variables. So what are variables, how to declare a variable, what is an initialization of variables, and what are the scope and lifetime of variables. We'll discuss all these things. The variable is the basic unit of storage in a Java program. A variable is defined by the combination of an identifier, a type, and an optional initializer. In addition, all variables have a scope, which defines their visibility and a lifetime. Now, how to declare a variable? So to declare a variable, here the a, this a and this b are variables. To declare a variable, what you need is a data type, then variable name, and if you will initialize the value at the declaration only, so you have to put equal to and you have to put the value and a semicolon. Or if you don't want to initialize the value here, then you just have to put the data type, and variable name with a semicolon. This will declare a variable of that data type. Now, scope and lifetime of a variable. So here we make a program for scope. I am writing a class, say class name is A, and then I am writing this. Here I am writing the public static void main, and the string array. Now I make a variable, say integer a equals to 10. I make another variable integer b equals to, say, 30. Then I make a variable here outside of the main method, and inside the class I make a variable integer c equals to 30, or suppose it this to be 20. And then here I am making a function in outside the main. That is, the name of the function is show. We will discuss functions later on, but now for understanding the scope and lifetime, I have to go to this topic. So now here I'm just printing this method, printing the values of a plus b plus c. Okay, and you have to make the method static. What is static we will discuss, just don't panic. You just understand what I'm telling you to understand. Okay, and now we call the method inside the main, that is show, and now we save it. Now we go to the command prompt and compile our program. So there are 5 errors. Sorry, I've written string, it should be string. Now save it and now compile the program. You'll get 3 errors. So the first error is cannot find symbol A, cannot find symbol B, non-static variable c cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, define this also as static. Now compile the program. You'll get two errors, that a and b are not defined. So what is scope? Scope is basically the lifetime. Here c is defined. This c is known as the global variable, because this c can be accessed outside the main also and even inside main. Okay, this a and b are the local variables. These variables can be accessed only within the methods in which they are defined. So in this case, the values of a and b, or the variables a and b, can be accessed only in the main method. They are not accessible here. So there is an error. So these are the concepts of variable and data types. I'll provide you a list of programs which you need to make, or I'll make the program. I'll upload the copies of programs which you should run at your PC, in your PC, and see the output. I have given the link below. You can just go to that link and download the programs there. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we will be discussing some other concepts such as arrays, one-dimensional array, two-dimensional array, and we'll be completing the array topic in that video. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day.